Today, we are immersing ourselves in a story that, well, if it wasn't documented fact, you'd almost swear it was historical fiction. We're talking about Ada Lovelace.
Really is an incredible story. I mean, a 19th century countess, daughter of Lord Byron, no less, writing these sophisticated algorithms.
For a general purpose computer.
Exactly. A computer that wouldn't even be properly built until decades after she died.
Ada Lovelace. I'm sure you've heard the name. Usually it comes with this grand title, the world's first computer programmer. But what if that's not the real story? What if that legendary title actually misses the point of her genius entirely? Today, we're going to dive into the paradox of this 19th century aristocrat who, wrote code for a machine that didn't even exist. But more than that, she saw the future of computing 100 years before pretty much anyone else. So let's start with a little pop quiz. Do you know who the daughter of the infamous poet Lord Byron was? You might be scratching your head on that one. But if I asked you to name the first computer programmer, well, I bet one name immediately pops into your head. Yup, Ada Lovelace. She gets this incredible title, right? But here's the crazy part, the twist in the story. She was doing all this, writing about computing, back in the 1840s. That's a full century before the technology was even a thing. And that, right there, is where this whole paradox really kicks off. All right, so first up, let's just talk about the legend of Ada, because it's a story that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. I mean, get this. She's the abandoned daughter of a super famous, scandalous poet. Her mom, terrified she'd inherit his poetic madness, pushes her into hardcore math and science instead. And it works. She becomes this prodigy, writes her most important work when she's only 27, and then just 9 years later, she's gone. It's like this brilliant flash of lightning and then darkness. Okay, so what's the actual evidence here? Why do we call her the first programmer? Why is that title stuck around for so long? Let's dig into the case for Ada Lovelace being this incredible pioneer. So the argument for Ada really boils down to three big things. First, she's credited with publishing what many consider the very first algorithm. Second, she introduced a core concept that we now call a loop. And third, and this might be the biggest one, she had this vision for what computers could be that was just light years ahead of everybody else. Now, before we go any further, let's just quickly get on the same page about what an algorithm even is. Think of it like a recipe, but for a machine. It's a super precise, step-by-step list of instructions to get something done. Honestly, it's the basic DNA of literally every piece of software you use today. Okay. So her big moment, her masterpiece, is in this document known as Note G. In it, she lays out this incredibly detailed method for Charles Babbage's theoretical machine, the analytical engine, to calculate this really complex sequence of numbers called Bernoulli numbers. But here's the key. It wasn't just a math problem. She included a repeating series of instructions, what we'd call a loop today. And that proved this machine could do more than just calculate. It could actually be programmed. And this is where she took this huge conceptual leap that just blows my mind. See, while Babbage, the inventor, saw a machine for crunching numbers, Ada saw poetry in it. She wrote that the engine might act upon other things besides number, things like manipulating symbols, composing music, maybe even creating art. She was literally describing general-purpose computing in 1843. It's just wow. I mean, that's a pretty powerful case, right? But like with most things in history, it's not that simple. The record is complicated, and for a lot of historians, calling her the first programmer isn't just a bit of an exaggeration. They say it's flat out wrong. So let's flip the coin and look at the case against. The critics really have three main arguments. First, the machine she was writing for, it was never built, ever. Second, its inventor, Babbage, had already thought of some of these same ideas himself. And third, what she actually wrote, well, it wasn't really a program like we think of a program today. So here's maybe the biggest problem for the first programmer claim. The number is 0. That's how many of Babbage's analytical engines were ever completed. Her program, as brilliant as it was purely theoretical. It only ever existed on paper. It was never run, never tested, and definitely never debugged. Then you've got the whole question of originality. If you actually dig into Charles Babbage's private notebooks from before her work, you find that he had already sketched out little bits of programs and even the whole concept of looping. Now, this suggests that Ada's role wasn't so much the originator, but maybe something more like a brilliant interpreter, the person who took his raw ideas, perfected them, and published them for the world to see. And really, that gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's all about perspective. We're taking a modern word, programmer, and trying to slap it onto something that happened in the 1840s. Her notes were an amazing theoretical blueprint for a machine that was just a concept. A modern program is actual, executable code that runs on a real, physical computer. They're just two very different things. So, where does that leave us? We have these two totally conflicting stories. But you know what? Maybe this whole debate about whether she was technically the first programmer is just a distraction. Maybe we've been asking the completely wrong question all along. What if we reframe this, and instead of focusing on the code, we focus on the vision?
Yeah, let's just do that for a second. Just forget the title programmer. Push it to the side. What if her real, undeniable genius wasn't in the code itself, but in her incredible ability to look at this complicated machine of gears and levers and somehow see the future? A future of general-purpose computing, a future of art and music made by machines.
You know, there's a fantastic analogy for this. Think of Charles Babbage as the Steve Wozniak of his time. He was the brilliant engineer, deep in the weeds, focused on the architecture, the nuts and bolts. Ada, then, was the Steve Jobs. She was the visionary, the one who looked at the tech and understood its revolutionary potential. And just as importantly, she was the one who could explain why it mattered to the world, making it all seem tangible and incredibly exciting. To put it simply, she was the bridge. She connected this super technical invention with its world-changing possibilities. You could almost say her notes were the very first, and maybe the best, marketing pitch for the idea of a computer. She made this abstract concept something people could actually grasp and get excited about. And that, right there, is its own special kind of genius. And that vision, that single, brilliant flash of insight, it becomes even more incredible when you find out about the personal chaos it came from. I mean, to really get a handle on her genius, you have to understand the brilliant, but very, very troubled woman who wrote those notes. Think about this. Her entire world-changing contribution to computing happened in this incredibly tiny window of time. She published her famous notes when she was just 27 years old. By the time she was 36, she was dead from cancer. That's it. It was this fleeting moment of pure brilliance. A whisper about the future that, honestly, nobody would really hear or understand for almost another 100 years. And that short life she had, it was anything but a quiet, scholarly one. Oh no. It was a complete whirlwind of chronic illness, an addiction to morphine, and a terrible gambling problem that left her buried in staggering debt. It's just an incredible contrast. She was personally wrestling with all this chaos while she was describing a new world built on perfect logic. So, yeah, we celebrate this incredible mind that she had. But we also have to be realistic. The constant battle with addiction, with debt, with her own failing health, it made the kind of long-term, disciplined focus you need for a huge scientific career, to be the next Isaac Newton, pretty much impossible for her. Her brilliance wasn't a long, steady burn. It was a flash of lightning. And so that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Was her destiny fulfilled in that one perfect, brilliant flash of insight? Or should we be mourning a much greater genius that was lost to time? It just leaves you wondering, what other futures might she have seen if she'd had more time? So, was she a programmer or was she a prophet? Maybe the answer is she was both. And that right there is the paradox of Ada Lovelace.